Good afternoon. An investigation is underway following a large house fire in Mississauga last night.
The intense blaze near Bristol and McLaughlin has destroyed the home. Fortunately, no injuries have been reported. CTV's Janice Golding has been following this investigation. She joins us live from the scene with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, fire officials are still here monitoring for hot spots after a devastating fire gutted a home here in Mississauga. Now, fire officials say they received a call at 10:40 p.m. Initial reports were that there were 8 people trapped inside the home on Select Court near Eglinton and McLaughlin. Emergency responders would quickly determine, however, that the family was actually away on a trip to Vietnam and there was no one inside. Mississauga Fire says the 2-alarm blaze required 12 pumpers, and it took about 2.5 hours to get under control. At this point, they say there are hot spots in the basement that they cannot reach due to floor instability. It's just not safe. They're now waiting for heavy equipment to arrive so the building can be taken down, and investigators from the Ontario Fire Marshal's office can determine what caused an initial explosion that sparked the blaze.
Essentially around 10:30, 10:40, we were just getting ready for bed, and then we heard a loud boom. I looked outside of the windows there, and I saw some of my neighbors standing outside. And then I ran out. I saw a glowing it looked like a fire. So I ran out. I saw a fire coming out of the front door.
So at this point, the OFMs looked, and it looks like there was an explosion prior to the fire. There were pieces of glass found with no smoke staining, which would indicate the explosion happened before the fire.
Now, was that something that happened with a car, an electric vehicle? Was it set deliberately by somebody, an incendiary device?
That's still undetermined at this point. The 2 vehicles in the driveway have minimal damage to them, just mostly from the debris from the fire. But as far as what caused the explosion, it's undetermined at this point.
Now, as you just heard fire officials say, there were neither electric vehicles in the garage nor in the driveway, and at this point, foul play is not suspected. Reporting live from Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Flags at Seneca Polytechnic campuses in the GTA have been lowered today in memory of one of 2 pilots killed in Sunday night's Air Canada crash at LaGuardia Airport. The pilots have been identified as Mackenzie Gunther and Antoine Foray. They died when the Air Canada Jazz plane they were flying crashed into a fire truck, which had been cleared to cross the runway. Students at Seneca reacted to the loss of an alumni.
I'm devastated. I've heard the news yesterday, and it broke my heart because that's a lot of people. So many people are impacted. I'm so sorry. Seneca's my whole heart, so that means the world. I'm so sorry.
Life's crazy. You can be expecting to have a normal life tomorrow, and your whole life can change overnight. Honestly, prayers go out to the family, anyone who was involved in that. It's a rough situation. You wish it never happens to anybody.
I hope this never happens again. I hope the government they solve the issue and figure out not how it happened, and it never happens again.
Still to come, more on the investigation underway in New York into the deadly crash. We'll have those details a little later in the newscast.
But first, an investigation is underway after shots were fired in Brampton overnight. Officers called to a home on Grendon Crescent near Chinguacousy and Queen. Multiple shots were fired and a number of shell casings were found on the road. A pickup truck in the driveway was struck by gunfire, several bullet holes visible. No injuries have been reported, and police have not provided details at this point about possible suspects.
And 3 people have been injured in a crash on an off-ramp from Highway 403 in Mississauga. It happened on the westbound 403 ramp to Erin Mills Parkway at around 11 p.m. Peel paramedics say a man was taken to a trauma center with serious injuries. 2 other people suffered less severe injuries. The ramp was closed for several hours for the cleanup and police investigation. And a truck went up in flames in Vaughan. York police were called to a home on Bellwood Boulevard near Dufferin and Confederation Parkway around 1:45 in the morning. When they arrived, a truck parked in the driveway was on fire. The incident is being investigated as a possible arson. Nobody was hurt. In Durham Region, concerned residents spoke at a Whitby City Council meeting last night, calling for communities to be notified when a high-risk offender is released.
Their plea comes after a convicted killer was granted 3 unescorted temporary absences from prison. CTV's Allison Hurst has the details.
Susan Tom and Kim Ostruck-Hamilton made 40 buttons to honor the memory of their friend Darren Pippin and the 40th anniversary of his murder.
He was a great guy. He taken far too soon.
At just 14 years old, Pippin was sexually assaulted and killed in 1986, shortly after he started high school.
Shocking. Couldn't believe it. It was like, no, not in our school. How could this happen? And especially just somebody like him. He's such a nice boy.
The man convicted in his death, Darren Scott Ray, had one 72-hour unescorted pass earlier this month to visit a community-based residential facility in Oshawa, and he has 2 more to use.
I was angry. This was my community, and he was allowed in my community, and it's not right. Somebody who is a violent offender, even manageable risk, is too high a risk.
At the time, Durham Regional Police issued a warning about high-risk offender Ray being released, but these women and a counsellor are calling for advanced notice.
Anytime a high-risk offender is being released from prison, every municipality should be notified.
Councillor Chris Leahy brought a motion to council, calling for the Parole Board of Canada to make this a policy. He says they also have a petition which they're trying to get more signatures for, which he plans to bring to the Federal Minister of Public Safety's office.
To advocate for that change, not only to review the decision on letting this person out for parole, but making this change so that municipalities can be notified.
Both Tom and Ostruck-Hamilton added their voices to the motion by speaking at council, saying they've got their friend Pippin's back.
He can't be roaming the streets. This is wrong. Why should he be enjoying his life when Darren never got that chance?
Though it will have been 40 years since his death on Wednesday, they still speak about Pippin often.
Always a smile on his face. Friendly with everybody. Nobody was unkind to him. He was just a lovely, lovely kid.
The dates and location of Ray's next 2 releases are unknown, only that he has been granted 2 more to be used within 12 months. Allison Hurst, CTV News.
CAA has launched its annual Worst Roads campaign and is calling on drivers to weigh in on which streets and highways are causing the most problems.
We encourage folks to, voice their frustrations and nominate a road that tends to frustrate them and have their voices heard, right? Even based off of our survey, we're also seeing that our CAA members are venting about the state of their roads to their spouse, to their friends, coworkers. About 80% of them are, but not necessarily to government. And they want to see more infrastructure and more changes being put into place. So this is the perfect opportunity to have your voices heard and let your elected officials know of which routes tend to frustrate you.
Wonder which ones will make the list this year. Last year's list included the Garner Expressway, Eglinton Avenue West, and Sheppard Avenue West. New survey data shows 80% of CAA members in Ontario are concerned about the state of the province's roads. 70% don't think enough is being done to maintain the roadways. You have until April 17 to nominate the worst roads in the province on the CAA website.
Drivers can expect some relief at the pumps in the near future. Gas prices are set to fall 13 cents tomorrow, according to Dan McTeague with Canadians for Affordable Energy. The price of oil dropped nearly 10% yesterday after U.S. President Donald Trump suggested talks with Iran could lead to a resolution in the ongoing war in the Middle East. However, Iran's parliamentary speaker denied any talks were taking place. And here's a look at average gas prices across the country. British Columbia has the most expensive gas, selling at roughly $1.93 a liter. Meanwhile, Alberta has the cheapest gas, selling for just under $1.63 a liter.
Toronto police are banning demonstrators from picketing on residential streets in the area of Bathurst and Sheppard since the start of the war between Israel and Hamas following the October 7th, 2023 attack by Hamas and Israel's subsequent response. The neighborhood has been the site of dueling demonstrations between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli groups. Toronto police released a statement about their decision that reads in part, due to the changing security landscape in Toronto in recent weeks, including increased volatility and heightened fear in our communities, demonstrations moving into residential neighborhoods in the Bathurst and Sheppard area presents an unacceptable risk to public safety. As a result, demonstrators will not be permitted to enter residential streets in this area. Lawful demonstrations at the main intersection and along the main streets of Bathurst Street and Sheppard Avenue West may continue. This is a targeted response to specific concerns and a measured step to reduce the risk of escalation and maintain public safety. Individuals who do not comply may be subject to arrest for obstructing police.
Thousands of students are expected to rally outside Queen's Park this afternoon to protest recent changes to OSAP. The demonstration will be the latest in an ongoing series of protests against the funding cuts. A rally earlier this month prompted the government to cover statues on the ground of Queen's Park because of concerns about vandalism. Under the old OSAP program, students could receive 85% of their funding through grants. Now, the Ford government is planning to slash that to 25%, with the remaining 75% available as a loan. The province says the change is necessary to fix what it calls an unsustainable program. The rally is expected to begin at 1:30 this afternoon.
The Ford government is set to table their budget on Thursday, and a new study shows the Premier has recorded the highest level of per-person debt in the province's history during his time in charge. This study, published by the Fraser Institute, finds per-person net debt in Ontario reached record highs in 2020 at nearly $30,000 and has remained historically high since then. The study looked at the level of provincial debt from 1980 to 2024. Researchers suggest Ontarians will likely face higher taxes at some point in order to pay for the province's debt burden. More news in a moment, but let's take a live look outside at this hour as we turn our attention to the forecast. And you can't really tell from this shot, but there's sunshine in the mix today. We're putting all those cloudy conditions that we've endured behind us, but certainly a bit of a trade-off to start the day. Cool conditions, the potential, maybe slight, for some flurries. Lindsay Morrison has all the details for us.
Yeah, Michelle, not a bad start to the day, at least when you consider the sunshine. It was chilly. It was -7 as most were waking up and perhaps heading out the door, but we've rebounded since then. It is 1 degree at Pearson Airport, still -1 in the city of Hamilton, but +3 in the Windsor area. I'm going to zoom in a little closer to show you some lakeside communities. 0 degrees this hour in Oakville, Burlington, Grimsby, and 0 for you in St. Catharines at this time. Winds today are coming from the southwest. They could be a little breezy at times through this afternoon, and there's our chance of flurries for today. Shouldn't be really like that burst of snow that we had yesterday. Very light in nature if we get anything. Today at a glance, +5 for the high. Yes, a bit of an increase in cloud cover as we progress through the afternoon. Coming up, we've got some mild conditions to talk about and also perhaps a decent amount of rain. Details are ahead, but for now, I'm going to send it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Legal arguments are underway at the Supreme Court over Quebec's secularism law known as Bill 21.
What began as a battle over religious symbols in classrooms has become a debate of people's rights and freedoms. CTV's Mike Lecouteur has the details.
It's not just a piece of cloth. It's my conviction.
For Naveen Wally, this legal fight is personal. The Muslim woman can't pursue her dream of teaching in Quebec because Bill 21 prevents public servants in positions of authority from wearing religious symbols. She's even been told she can't volunteer at her daughter's school.
Because of my hijab, because they consider this a religious symbol. And it really affected me. I was angry, I'm upset, I'm sad.
Hundreds demonstrated outside the Supreme Court as hearings began on the constitutionality of Quebec's secularism law.
Is not the purpose of this law clearly to put in place a separation of church and state?
That may have been the purpose, but opponents argue there's an impact on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
It matters because it was always intended to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
There's also concern about the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause. The section of the Charter allows provinces to temporarily override certain freedoms. Quebec used it for Bill 21, and other provinces have looked to use that legislative tool. The leader of the Bloc Québécois says the clause is the last line of defense for provincial lawmakers.
If we lose that, people will have to ask themselves if there is any other opportunity to protect what they are and to promote what they are, but independence.
For Wally, it's about the personal independence and freedom.
This is for everybody, and this is going to affect generations to come.
The Supreme Court has set aside 4 days of hearings for the 51 interveners in this case. and it's expected to take several months before its decision is rendered. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada's Auditor General released a report on Canada's international student program and its impact on immigration.
According to the data, schools flagged thousands of potentially problematic students, but only a fraction were investigated. CTV's Abigail Beeman has the details.
The Auditor General says Ottawa's international student caps and program reforms fall short when it comes to integrity.
What's concerning for me is that the department isn't acting on the information that it has.
The report found schools flagged more than 153,000 potential red flag students to the government over 2 years, but the Immigration Department only investigated just over 4,000. And when 41% of flagged students didn't respond to the government, the investigation seemed to end there.
We will definitely do better.
Overall, the caps worked to drop the numbers, but the audit found they dropped much more than expected. This graph shows the projected number of new study permits for 2024 and 25, and the total actually approved up until September. The audit also found 800 cases where applicants either used fraudulent information or misrepresented themselves. Most went on to apply for other immigration permits, and more than half of those were approved.
We will be centralizing the investigation. We will be streamlining anyone that is flagged. We will be doing more reporting, and we will be information sharing with CBSA.
But the minister wouldn't say how many more investigations would be possible.
We've brought too many people into the country too fast for housing, healthcare, jobs to keep up. That has lowered public acceptance for immigration, and frankly, it's just a giant dumpster fire.
The immigration minister also said the report only captures the first 18 months of a multi-year reform. The Conservatives are calling that an illusion, saying nothing has changed. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board gave an update into the deadly Air Canada crash at New York's LaGuardia Airport.
There is a tremendous amount of debris from taxiway Delta across runway 4 into some other areas. It's pretty expansive.
The runway where the crash happened remains closed as investigators collect evidence from the scene. The cockpit voice and flight data recorders have been recovered. Investigators plan to interview the air traffic controller who was handling another emergency at the time of the crash. The chair of the NTSB says the runway will remain closed for several days. And CTV's Rachel Aiello has been following the investigation and joins us with more. So, Rachel, what are investigators make that hoping to learn from the cockpit voice and flight data recorders?
Good afternoon, Nathan. So clearly those two black boxes are going to be key to this investigation. Those pieces of information are going to shed direct light on what was going on within that Air Canada flight in the moments leading up to the tragic crash. We'll likely learn whether brakes were applied, as we've heard from some passengers, witnesses indicating that was the case, what communication there was between the pilots and U.S. air traffic control in those moments. So certainly being able to recover those two black boxes, the voice recorder as well as the flight data, is going to be a major piece of this investigation, and an investigation, Nathan, that we now know that Canadian officials are participating in while it is being led by U.S. Transportation Safety Board officials. Canadian officials are taking part, will play a role in this given the cross-jurisdictional nature. But beyond the voice recorder, we're also expecting there's going to be, as you rightly mentioned, interviews with the air traffic controllers. A lot of questions swirling right now about staffing levels, training, potential fatigue that may have played a role here, as well as interviewing witnesses, including those expected. 72 passengers, 4 crew members, and others around the scene, including those fire truck passengers. All of those pieces will help to piece together exactly how this tragedy transpired.
A lot of different factors. They're also looking into how many people were in the control tower when the crash happened. Why might that be important?
Yeah, obviously this has been a big question surrounding this and other recent incidents of air travel incidents in the United States, tying back to funding challenges that U.S. air traffic controllers are facing, staffing issues. And this was actually something that Canada's Transportation Minister was asked about by reporters today, whether this was a prioritizing or a big concern for him. Here's what he had to say.
I have the duty to follow the evidence where it leads. That's what we'll be doing. We conduct extremely rigorous analyses of these tragic incidents, and we learn from everyone. We learn from those who learn from their own incidents as well, and we'll be applying those lessons very fastidiously.
So clearly a bit of hesitation there from Canada's Transport Minister in terms of declaring that that is one of the preoccupying concerns, but obviously is going to be one of the issues investigated. Stephen McKinnon, the Transport Minister, indicating as well that Canadian and American air officials have been and will remain in close contact, those lines of communications continuing as this investigation unfolds and as that tarmac at LaGuardia reopens in the coming days. Nathan?
Thank you. CTV's Rachel Ayala with the latest on the Air Canada crash. Thank you.
Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke this morning at Canada's National Prayer Breakfast, an annual Christian event attended by some of the country's top officials. Carney spoke about generosity, including a possible reference to a recent speech given by the Leader of the Opposition.
I know there's some Stoics in the room, so I will close by channeling Marcus Aurelius. Arise for the work of humankind. Be humble. However grand you are today, or maybe to become tomorrow, you too will be forgotten. With the centuries, our names become puzzles. So may we give thanks for the generosity we each have received and for which we are now called to pass on.
Last month, Pierre Poilievre also quoted former Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius during his speech. The Conservative leader was next to speak at the event and continued the theme.
And Prime Minister, I think it is very appropriate that you quoted Marcus Aurelius, although he wasn't much of a practicing Christian. Stoicism, no, is very appropriate because Stoicism and Christianity do share a common theme, which is to focus on what you can control and release all that you cannot. Ultimately, the Serenity Prayer is obviously a Christian prayer, but it is very much a Stoic one. God, grant me the courage to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference.
The philosophy of Stoicism mentioned by both leaders there, promoting a focus on actions that can be controlled and less anxious acceptance of events that cannot.
Iran fired multiple waves of missiles at Israel today, despite U.S. President Donald Trump saying America's in talks with Iran to end the war. Iran has denied that claim. 4 people suffered minor injuries when a missile struck a street in central Tel Aviv, causing damage to a nearby apartment building.
A residential building in northern Tehran was heavily damaged by strikes from U.S. and Israeli forces. An Israeli military official says the country carried out a large wave of airstrikes across several areas of Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has indicated his country will continue to strike Iran and Lebanon, even as the U.S. considers a ceasefire.
Meanwhile, Israel continues to attack the southern suburbs of Beirut. It says it's targeting infrastructure used by the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah. The Lebanese Health Ministry says at least 3 people were killed in an airstrike on a residential apartment in Beirut's southeast.
And 3 Pakistani officials and an Egyptian official say the U.S. has agreed in principle to join talks in Pakistan to try and end the war. They add mediators are still working to convince Iran to join these talks. Iranian officials have remained defiant, saying they will fight until, quote, complete victory.
Russia launched a massive drone and missile barrage of civilian areas of Ukraine. The overnight strikes killed 4 people and injured at least 27. Ukraine's Air Force says Russia fired nearly 400 long-range drones, as well as a cruise and ballistic missile. Today, the Ukrainian Prime Minister said there was a daylight attack on the crowded center of the western city of Lviv. 2 people were injured. Ukraine says the enemy is also trying to break through frontline defenses in several key areas. Some experts believe a spring-summer offensive appears to have begun.
NASA announced plans today to build a multi-billion-dollar base on the surface of the moon.
The moon base will not appear overnight. We will invest approximately $20 billion over the next 7 years and build it through dozens of missions, working together with commercial and international partners towards a deliberate and achievable plan.
The space agency says the base will support sustained operations on the lunar surface. It will be constructed using some of the components already built for a planned space station in the moon's orbit. But that project has now been canceled in favor of this base. The change is related to the Artemis mission, which will see astronauts return to the moon's surface for the first time in nearly 60 years. Canadian Jeremy Hansen will fly around the moon as part of that mission. Liftoff is scheduled for April 1st. Lindsay.
Now, I know there aren't too many outdoor rinks still open at this time of year, but today would be a good day to get outside and enjoy one of them. So here's a look at what you can expect through the rest of this afternoon. Bit of an increase in cloud cover, that's for sure. And then tonight we do slip back below freezing. We're going to get a nice little bump in temperature for Thursday. Just don't get too used to it because colder air returns for Friday and the weekend. We are also looking at some active weather, mainly in the form of rain for us, but it could be snow elsewhere. We're going to dive into your 7-day forecast after the break here on CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
All right, to the forecast. It is chilly, or at least was this morning. I'm still seeing people with winter coats on, but at least gradually the temperature is rising.
That is nice, and that blue sky, it just makes you feel like anything is possible. We'd been under a cloud for well over a week, and suddenly the sunshine. We've needed this.
You could say we have a spring in our step, right? Even though, it hasn't totally felt like the season for the first few official days of it. Today is better. We're near seasonal temperature-wise, at least for the daytime high today. Not so much for the early morning temperature as most were waking up. And that sunshine is nice. We do expect a bit of an increase in cloud cover today. There's a slight chance of flurries as well. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Let's enjoy the sunshine while we have it. Tomorrow will be another mostly cloudy day. We have to jump ahead to about Friday by the time we have another beautifully sunny day, but we will get some peaks here and there in the mix. There's Nathan Phillips Square in the ice. We've seen skaters on this ice the last many days, so let's see how much longer this rink can stay open. May as well enjoy it while we can. It is 1 degree right now in the city of Toronto. It's +3 as mentioned in Windsor, -1 degree in Wyerton as well as Ottawa, and you will find cooler temperatures the further north you go. A seasonal norm is 7 degrees, so we're not expected to quite make it to that today, but we do expect that we'll climb to near 5 degrees for a high and about -3 for a low. That's not as cold as last night, and it is near normal. So -2 is where we expect to be for an overnight low. There's tomorrow, similar temperature, pretty similar conditions to today, mainly cloudy skies overall. And then into your Wednesday night, we see the first signs of a few showers, and that is going to clear the way for a bit of an unsettled day on Thursday. But Thursday is also our mildest day. Wait until you see the expected temperature now. Here's the satellite and radar. We do have some snow making its way around the Bruce Peninsula, portions of Muskoka, and the Nickel Belt region seeing some snow also. Not going to amount to a whole lot, couple of centimeters with this disturbance. We should stay dry. It's about 30% chance of a quick passing flurry here in the GTA. Won't be so dry, though, again, as we make our way into Wednesday night and Thursday. So here's the forecast radar. There's that 1 to 2 centimeters east of Georgian Bay. Varying amounts of sun and cloud for tomorrow. And then showers might not even impact us for Wednesday evening. Might be overnighted into Thursday. The steadier rainfall looks like it's going to fall through Thursday afternoon. There could be a little bit of mixing in some areas, maybe some light snow once again, but it should be predominantly rain for us here in the GTA. And then Friday's looking like a drier day, a sunnier day, but also a colder day. There's, again, some of the snowfall amounts that we expect, 1 to 3 centimeters, depending on where you are, mainly Peterborough and north. And then as far as rainfall is concerned, Maybe 5 to 10 millimeters is what we are expecting here locally on Thursday. But some areas like Windsor, for example, could see a bit more than that. And this is also the time of year where we get into the possibility of some thunder showers. So if that happens, that will up the rainfall amounts. Look at that forecast daytime high for Thursday. Yes, it is an unsettled day, but at this point we are calling for 14 degrees for a daytime high. You'll notice that it's really the only day that looks like that, though. Down to about -6 for an overnight low, and then Friday struggling to make it past +1. But again, mainly sunny skies. The weekend looks not bad. Chance of flurries into Saturday, but temperatures once again climbing close to normal. That's the weather for now. Nathan, gonna send it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Toronto is one step closer to welcoming soccer fans from across the globe for the FIFA World Cup.
The city and MLSE are celebrating the completion of key upgrades to BMO Field, also known as Toronto Stadium, ahead of the massive tournament. Our Rahim Ladhani joins us live now from that stadium. And Rahim, when you drive by on the Gardner, you can definitely see there's been a change there.
Hey, Michelle, yeah, you certainly can tell that there's been a change there. And then once you're inside the stadium and get a tour, as we just completed doing, you can see that the upgrades are actually quite substantial. $160 million worth of upgrades, some temporary, others permanent, and it's pretty impressive. Let's talk about the one which, as you mentioned, that you can see when you're driving by outside. That is the temporary seating. A lot of questions had been made about the safety of these. Well, we got an up-close look at them, and officials tell us that they have actually sat in each and every seat. And while some may look at pictures and videos and say this doesn't look too sturdy, officials say that the seats are safe for everyone to use. And this is a big part of the transformation of BMO Field into Toronto Stadium because it's expanding the capacity up to 45,000 seats. Another big change here will be the field. TFC, the BMO Field, has always had natural grass, but they actually dug 8 inches under to get new stitching and new rubber on the field. That makes it more authentic, and it's going to help it stay up to date and really the longevity of the field to have so many World Cup games in such a short amount of time. We also got a tour of the locker room. They had to expand the locker room to 26 lockers. That's the FIFA standard. Another area which is really interesting, which fans will be interested to hear, is the kitchen space. Whether you're a dignitary VIP or enjoying some of the offerings at the concourse, one of the big meaningful changes which is really thoughtfully being done are the food offerings. And we spoke to one of the chefs who told us that depending on which games are being played inside Toronto Stadium for that day, they're going to try to reflect that in the food offerings, meaning whether Croatia is playing here or Cote d'Ivoire and of course Canada, they are going to have food from those local regions to really try to mimic and help people feel like they're in that country. So there are a lot of upgrades to the stadium. Have a listen to what some of the officials are saying about them today.
We expanded seating to 45,000 people, installed a new FIFA grade pitch, upgraded player and broadcast facilities, and improved the fan experience with better technology and, yes, food option. That's important too. These improvements will benefit fans for years to come. But what matters most is not what happens inside the stadium, it's how the tournament will be felt across the city. Fans, visitors, and residents from across the globe will experience Toronto as a safe, caring, and welcoming city.
This builds upon the over $150 million that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment have invested in the stadium, getting us to the part where we could be a contender for World Cup matches. As you've heard from the mayor, we've added broadcast quality lighting. We've added these spectacular 4-corner LED boards and a control room to make sure they're properly powered. A new audio system, a new FIFA regulation grass pitch, expanded kitchen facilities, hospitality spaces, and 17,000 temporary seats, which you'll hear more about. So it's very, very fair to say that this stadium has been truly transformed.
Two other upgrades I want to share with you. There are 4 video boards that are now permanent installations. In terms of the upgrade there, while officials tell us that they have nearly improved the quality of those video boards by nearly 100%. The second upgrade is also Wi-Fi connectivity. Just imagine how many people are going to be in this stadium. They want to make sure that everyone can connect to their devices, post on social, get in touch with other people. So they've also improved the infrastructure on that front to make sure that it's a seamless experience. Now, one last thing to tell you about the budget, of course. Mayor Olivia Chow was asked about the budget, $380 million total to put on the FIFA World Cup experience. She says the city is on budget and could potentially even come in a little bit under budget. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladhani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, good to hear. Thanks, Rahim. Well, 5 Raptors scored in double digits, snapping a 2-game losing skid when they squared off with the Utah Jazz last night.
Largest lead, 13, in Scotty at the buzzer. Barnes.
4 Raptors scored 20 or more points as the team thumped the Jazz 143-127. The Raptors will continue their West Coast swing tomorrow when they take on the Los Angeles Clippers.
The Maple Leafs will be looking to snap a 3-game losing streak when they face off with the Boston Bruins tonight.
Now he's got stuck for 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Here's Tavares in, scores!
The team lost 5-2 to the Ottawa Senators on Saturday. The Leafs have only won twice in 14 games since the NHL returned from its Olympic break. Puck drop for tonight's game against the Bruins is set for just after 7 p.m. in Boston.
Still to come, 2 pharmaceutical companies say they produced an experimental Lyme disease vaccine. We'll have those details when we come back. Pharmaceutical companies Pfizer and Valneva say they've made an experimental vaccine for Lyme disease that is broadly effective despite the clinical trial failing to achieve its main goal. The companies say the new vaccine was more than 70% effective in preventing Lyme disease in people aged 5 and up during a phase 3 trial. However, because there were fewer cases of the tick-borne illness during the study period, the trial did not reach its primary endpoint.
You know, when you get a vaccine, your body produces what are known as antibodies, and if you're exposed to the bacteria or the virus, your body will mount an immune response to it when it gets into your body. What's neat about this vaccine is, yes, you're given a shot and you produce antibodies to it, but it's not necessarily taking effect in your body. When a tick bites you and sucks up your blood, those antibodies bind to the Lyme in the tick to prevent it from being transmitted to you. So you're actually transferring the blocking technique of the antibodies in the tick itself. So it's a rather smart way to prevent transmission.
People bitten by an infected tick often get a rash and flu-like symptoms, including muscle and joint ache, headache, nausea, and vomiting. In some cases, the disease can also lead to neurological problems. Experts warn transmission rates could rise as climate change leads to longer, warmer, and drier summers, which is an ideal environment for ticks.
Still to come, Canadian farmland is continuing to grow in value. We'll have more on which areas have seen the biggest bumps when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Agricultural land prices in Canada continued to climb last year, but some regions saw a larger increase than others. That's according to a new report by Farm Credit Canada. The value of Canadian farmland rose by an average of 9.3% last year. That increase was on par with 2024, but less than the 11.5% jump in 2023. Prairie provinces saw the biggest bumps last year, while British Columbia saw a decrease of nearly 2%. Another new report shows tens of thousands of federal workers are still dealing with issues linked to the Phoenix pay system.
Now, Canada's Auditor General says those problems could carry over into the new pay system if they're not addressed soon. CTV's Josh Morano has the story.
Kevin Wazen is one of thousands of federal employees who have had to deal with Phoenix pay system issues.
They'll email you like, oh, we're not going to pay you, and, you know, these next 2 weeks you're not getting paid, so you're sitting there scrambling.
Wazen isn't the only one experiencing problems. According to Canada's Auditor General, as of late September, more than 230,000 pay transactions remain in backlog.
We also found limited progress in clearing the backlog of requests to fix employees' pay.
Since Phoenix was introduced in 2016, there have been significant issues with employees being underpaid, overpaid, or not paid at all. Now, the federal government is working to replace it with a new system, Dayforce, which is expected to be implemented by 2031. But Hogan warns the government is running out of time to clear the existing backlog.
This creates a risk of transferring existing pay errors into the Dayforce system, which could undermine its effectiveness from the start.
I want to get to a point where people are paid properly, but if it's waiting on this new pay system, it's still going to be a problem. And the fact that we're, this far away, why are we still having these problems 10 years on?
But replacing Phoenix comes with a hefty price tag. The government estimates it will cost around $4.2 billion, but Hogan says she expects the actual cost to be higher.
I look back to Phoenix 10 years ago, we were supposed to save $400 million, and it's now cost close to $5 billion. And the money that is being spent on this new pay system, are we going to see really a return on investment?
For workers like Wazen, confidence in a new system is still hard to find.
Hopefully they fix it. Obviously, I wish them the best, but I don't have high hopes.
Josh Morano, CTV News.
Newly released data suggests Canadian causes are getting a major boost from the fundraising platform GoFundMe. In the past 5 years, $1 billion has been raised through GoFundMe for causes across our country. A cause that saw major support from the platform was the fundraising effort following the Humboldt Broncos bus crash in 2018.
Seeing the impact that the community gave to me and my teammates was what helped us move forward, and that actually helped us, move past the tragedy and obviously remember it, but be able to create a life for ourselves. And seeing the impact that it made on the community, how they all came together for us it's something that words can't describe, but it really gives us a lot of meaning and purpose, and we want to continue to live on and remember those that were lost, and it's all thanks to the community.
Canada is number 5. We're in 20 countries around the world, so it's a very high ranking. Just to give you a sense of this, there's 6,000 times a day Canadians are supporting one another on GoFundMe.
And in the last year alone, Torontonians donated nearly $23 million to causes through GoFundMe.
Celine Dion is reportedly set to take the stage in Paris this fall for her first full show in more than 5 years. The 5-time Grammy winner last headlined a concert in 2020. In 2022, Dion revealed she'd been diagnosed with stiff person syndrome. The rare disorder causes muscle stiffness and impaired mobility. Coming up, keeping a maritime legacy afloat. We'll have more on a boat builder in Newfoundland passing on his skills to the next generation. Wooden boats are fading from the waters off the coast of Newfoundland, but their legacy is not lost.
CTV's Garrett Barry has more on a man passing down his skills to the next generation.
With every scrape and push, this Rodney boat comes to life. One of just a handful that will be built this year. It's been Jerome Canning's calling to see that this endangered species doesn't disappear.
It's a resurgence for just keen people who want a rowboat and want something of our own heritage and our own culture.
He's a former school teacher, now passing on the knowledge he's learned from experts all over the province.
I'm from a bay that was resettled, so in the town of Placentia where I learned it, a lot of people were there from the resettled islands of Placentia Bay, and they happened to be building boats, so they showed you everything they knew.
Taking that tradition to the next generation.
It's a dying trade for young people, because I know there's a lot of people my age that has never even set foot in a boat. And I try and preach it to people all the time.
Jerome Canning's the man for the job, according to the leaders of the Wooden Boat Museum, who organized this 12-week course.
Jerome is still young enough, dare I say, to have some mileage left in him, but he's still old enough that he has the tradition that he grew up with.
Many who go through this class will go on and build their own boat, their fixtures, coming back for a 1 or 2 day class to refresh their knowledge or work on particular problems.
It's quite gratifying to see that we've been responsible for building half a dozen other boats.
And another part of it is it's a fabulous learning experience. If you love working with wood, it's such amazing material to work with and what you can do with it. And I hope actually, you know, to pass on some of this to my sons.
This Rodney will be sold to help finance museum operations. So it's 12 more men who've learned the art of the Newfoundland boat and one more boat on the water in Newfoundland and Labrador. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
How cool.
Just a beautiful art form. I don't know if we're not really going boating anytime soon, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
We've got sunshine today.
It won't be too long before those boats are out on Lake Ontario and other lakes across Ontario. We just have to keep thinking positively, right? Into this evening, all is pretty pleasant, pretty calm, fairly quiet. Here's a look at what you can expect for both the evening and the overnight hours. We do slip below freezing tonight, but that's still normal for this time of year. -2 is the average low at this point in the month of March. And then tomorrow, very similar temperature to today, +5 for the high, maybe a little more cloud throughout the day. Look at this temperature swing over the next 3. So 5 degrees tomorrow, 14 on Thursday with some wet weather, and then we're down around +1 for Friday. The weekend starts off a little cool as well, but overall it's not looking too bad. Some sunshine, chance of flurries on Saturday. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. And that's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.